Hi, my name is Norma Phelan. Thank you for joining me for Are You College Ready? Understanding CCMR. So before we start defining CCMR exactly, I want to take a look at this chart that shows information about our current job market. So my job as a college and career counselor is to better prepare students for the world after high school, mostly in terms of jobs and post-education, obviously. In the past, the job market was less competitive. A lot of people usually just had one job over the course of their lifetime. They would stay in the same town where they grew up, and retirement was tended to be more secure. Nowadays, the job market is super competitive. Many people have multiple jobs over the course of their lifetime. Some may even move for a job. And retirement is just not as secure. And so we have to prepare students to be more flexible and adaptable to this environment that they're going to go into. And so the other thing that we're seeing is that by 2025, at least 60% of the jobs that are out there are going to require post-secondary education. And if you look at this chart, you'll see that in 2019, we had about half the population not fully credentialed to go and find a high skills job. And so that all plays into what we're discussing here today. So where do students get the skills that are needed in this very competitive job market and a very changing and uncertain job market? And so a lot of you are probably well aware of college, but sometimes you're not aware of all the options that are available. And so you've probably heard of an associate's degree, and you've probably heard that it only takes you 2 years to get an associate's degree. But did you know that there are many associate's degrees that you can earn and be making more money than someone who has a 4-year or 6-year degree? So I'm thinking of degrees or careers like physical therapist assistant, occupational therapy assistant. There's lots of careers out there that are in high demand, and you don't need to spend a lot of time and money to get into one of those jobs. There are also lots of great certifications that you can get in less than a year that in the same way can help you get your foot in the door in a certain industry or give you a job that you can use to continue your education. And I'm thinking of one example of like phlebotomy. It is people that work at a clinic and they draw blood. So you can get this quick certification, be working at a clinic and be making around 20-something thousand dollars a year as an 18-year-old. Like that could be a lot of money for some students, and you could use that towards continuing your education. There's also trade schools. A lot of times students think of trade schools and you automatically think of automotive technology or welding. But there are lots of other schools like culinary arts or cosmetology where you get more of a hands-on training, and it could take as little as 2 years to get into a good career that you might be interested in. And like I said earlier, a lot of you are familiar with the 4-year degree or the bachelor's degree. And then after that, once you finish your bachelor's degree, you can go on towards a graduate program, like a master's degree that may take 2 years. And then you could continue on to a professional degree, like if you're considering being a doctor or a lawyer, and that may take more time to get into those fields. In addition, there's military training. Some students are very interested in the military because they come from families where they have a long history of military careers. But nowadays, students are taking advantage of the educational benefits that can come from being in the military. So you can earn money that can help pay for a degree after you finish your enlistment. So back to this whole term of CCMR. You may have heard it here and there. It stands for College Career Military Readiness. So for us as staff members at a school district, CCMR means a different thing. We want students to meet certain indicators so that by the time they graduate, we can say they are CCMR ready. But in this presentation, we're going to be talking more in a practical sense of what college, career, and military readiness mean. So because most of our students do end up going to college, There's a lot more information I need to cover on that side, but let me just touch on the career and the military readiness first. So in terms of career readiness, our state wants us to have more students complete industry-based certifications. So at our schools, we have different programs like RDA, CNA, pharmacy tech, welding. So these certifications give students a specific set of marketable skills, which is amazing. That if you could take one of these, have one of these certifications by the time you graduate, go into that specific career field, and like I mentioned earlier, continue your degree, but just already be working towards a specific career goal. But I know sometimes some students are not that, haven't taken the time, or just don't know yet what they want to pursue. So sometimes students they hesitate to get into certain certifications because they really don't know what they want to study. And so this is where we want to encourage you to really seek out, more information about careers. So you might need to do some more reflecting on what you want to do for a career. And this could come in the form of taking an assessment. We have all kinds of career assessments that you can take, or maybe you just need some counseling. Maybe you just need some advice. So definitely come see me if you're at Tomball Memorial, or go see Miss Nichols over at Tomball High School to kind of discuss what your career aspirations are. And once you take some assessments or talk about some different things, some different ideas about careers, it's really important that you seek out information about these specific careers, because sometimes students have one idea of what a career might be, and then in actuality, it's something else. So in the past, I've had students tell me, because they've kind of been hearing, oh, I'm going to be an engineer. And when I probe a little further, sometimes students are a little confused about exactly what engineering is. So in the same way, I want students to do research on the specific career so that they're well aware of what's involved in that career. So how much education is required? What's the job outlook? Is that specific career even going to be available when you graduate? So students really do need to have more information to be career ready. The same thing happens with military. We have students who will tell us from day one, 9th grade, I'm going to go into the Army, or I'm going into the Navy, and that's that. They don't want to hear anything about college. They don't want to know anything. Unfortunately, there are many, not unfortunately, but there are many steps to enlisting in the military. And you have to meet all of these different items in order to enlist. And sometimes that student who said since 9th grade that they wanted to be in the Army may end up finding way later that they're not eligible for the military. So one of the first requirements is taking the ASVAB. So that's the test that students must take in order to get into the military. Not only taking the test, but making minimum scores. You have to have a minimum score to get in, and then you have to meet certain requirements, minimum scores, to get into specific jobs that you might want. And so that's where that understanding comes in. And it's not just, I'm going to go into the military, I'll take care of it later. You've got to know what's expected. And in addition, sometimes things come up during the medical exam portion that students weren't aware of that may disqualify them for the military. So students do have to take a medical exam, physical exam, hearing, vision test, and have to meet certain height and weight measurements. So that's super important that you know all of that stuff going in and not waiting until the last minute to find out. So if you want to learn more about the military in general, I encourage you to visit this website. It's a government website that provides lots of information about all the branches of the military. And so I encourage you to go there, in addition to talking to our military recruiters that we have come to our campuses often. So the more information you have up front, the more prepared you'll be by the time you graduate. So earlier I mentioned that we will talk more about the college readiness part, and it's because of this. In Tomball ISD, about half of all our seniors end up enrolling at four-year universities, and about 40% end up enrolling at two-year universities after graduation. So I may be preaching to the choir in terms of talking about college readiness. However, a lot of times students don't know exactly what college readiness is, okay? So college readiness means that you have the ability to successfully complete a college, freshman level college course that counts for credit. So that counts for your towards your degree. We have many students who get accepted into four-year universities, but then they end up in remedial classes. So these are classes that are not at college level, that cost money, and they don't go towards your degree. So what ends up happening? You're wasting time, wasting money, and that can be kind of discouraging. And so a lot of times we have students that drop out of college, and we do not want that. We want you to be fully prepared by the time you graduate so that you can move forward quickly towards that goal of having the career of your dreams. Okay. So, but how do colleges know whether or not you'll be successful in completing these college level classes? So they've done some studies, and they took students who were making a B average in their freshman level classes, and then they went back and saw what scores they made on their SAT and ACT. And so every year that we visit with you and talk to you about your PSAT scores, you might remember that you'll get your report, and on it, it'll have like a little green light, a little yellow light, or a little red light. And it would tell you whether or not you were on track for college readiness. Do y'all remember that? So if you kept seeing green all along on your PSAT, then you're probably on track. You probably meet these college readiness benchmarks. Okay, so let's just take a look at them. So here in Texas, these are our college readiness benchmarks, and across the U.S. as well. But we're going to talk about why it's certain things are specific to Texas. So for the SAT, if you made a 480 on the evidence-based reading and writing section, you are now eligible to take a college level English class. If on the math section you made a 530, you are now eligible to take college level math. Okay. And then colleges will then have other, like a variety of requirements for science classes and other classes. Okay. But these are just your basic college readiness benchmarks. Okay. On the ACT, it's a little different. You might not be able to see it very well here because this bubble here. On the ACT, you must have a composite score of a 23, so an overall 23, but then you also have to have the 19 on the English and 19 on the math. And so it's really important that you take a look at your scores and see where you are. And here's why. And earlier I mentioned that a lot of our students do enroll in four-year universities. And this is how they end up not realizing that they don't have those college readiness benchmarks. So you know that in Texas, we have a top 10% rule that says the students who are in the top 10% of their graduating class get automatic admission to any Texas public university. So you'll see on this chart that there are no minimums on the SAT or ACT. Usually we don't see a problem with our top 10% kids meeting college readiness. It's sometimes we see it in the other quarters. So take a look at the next round of scores there. So the top 11 to 25%. If you're in the top quarter, just outside the top 10, and you have a 21 on the ACT, you get automatic admission. But let's go back to that chart. This says that you need a 23 to be college ready. And so that's what ends up happening sometimes with our students is that they may get automatic admission, but they may not have automatic college readiness. So let's look at another example. So now with COVID, it's even more likely that you'll be confused as far as the college readiness part, because a lot of colleges have made accommodations for students who were not able to test during COVID. So a lot of times test centers were closed, and so you didn't have as many opportunities to test. And so they're giving students the option to go through the admissions process without having to submit their tests. And so here's what the University of Houston did. Not only do they have that automatic admission chart with test scores, they have one without test scores. So what they're going to do is they're going to look at your class rank, and then they're also going to look at your unweighted, a recalculated GPA. So what they're doing is they're taking your English, math, science, and social studies grades and creating a new GPA unweighted. So they'll give you a new GPA. And so you have no test scores here. So you could get automatic admission to University of Houston with a 3.4 GPA and not realize that you don't have the test scores to sit in college level classes. And this is the best example because Sam Houston has been using a different automatic admissions chart. They did away with the ranks, and they started using GPAs. And so that's a good thing for our students because a lot of our students have really good grades, but sometimes they end up at the bottom half of the class, even though they have B averages. And so a lot of times this chart would benefit our students and they could get automatic admission to Sam Houston. But look at these scores. Someone with a 3.5 GPA could get automatic admission to Sam Houston, but look at the minimum test scores. They might have a 930 on the SAT and have to sit in remedial classes and just weren't aware. So these are the things that I really want you to understand as you go through this process. And so what this means is that if you did not have the scores that I showed you, these here, then you are not what's called TSI exempt, okay? Here in Texas, we call it, there's the Texas Success Initiative. If you do not have these minimum college readiness benchmarks, you are not TSI exempt. And so TSI not only stands for that initiative, it also stands for the test, the TSI exam. So the TSI assessment, so TSI A2. And so if you don't meet those benchmarks, you could go and just retake the SAT or the ACT. A lot of our students only have one SAT score or SAT that they've taken. They probably took the free March test and they thought they were solid. But some of you are great test takers. So if you just studied more, you could make those minimum scores or higher. Okay. But we do have a lot of students that do have test anxiety sometimes, or, they just need more time when they're testing. So that you could potentially take the TSI and meet the college readiness minimums on the TSI and not have to retake the SAT or ACT. So let me talk about the TSI a little bit. So if taking the SAT or the ACT doesn't sound very appealing to you, then you could take the TSI. It is a test that has two sections. It's 2.0 because they just updated it. And so the ELAR actually has reading and writing combined, and then there's math. And the thing that you might like about it is that it is a computer test. It's a test on the computer, and it's computer adaptive. And what that means is that when you answer a question, the test will then change the level of difficulty depending on how you answer that question. So everybody's test is going to look different. The other great thing about the TSI is that you get immediate results. You don't have to wait weeks and weeks like you do with the SAT or the ACT to get your results. And then if you don't make the score you need to meet college readiness, you'll get diagnostics that'll help you practice for the next time you take it. And you can take it as many times as you want, and it's also very convenient. It's offered pretty much every day of the week at Lone Star College and some of our other community colleges, whereas the SAT is only offered like maybe once every 3 months. I mentioned how it's untimed. So again, those students who have a tough time with timed tests, it's untimed. You can take your time. You can break up the test. You could take just the ELAR section one day and just the math section another day if you want. So this could be a great option for students who do not meet college readiness on their SAT or their ACT. And so anyone planning to go to school here in Texas should also plan to take the TSI unless you're going to take the SAT or the ACT. If your goal is to attend a college out of state, you need to do some research. I would still advise you to meet our Texas college readiness benchmarks or, taking the TSI, because you never know what's going to happen. You may be so set on going somewhere out of state, but your plans might change. You might have to come back to Texas. So why not just take care of those requirements and just have it just in case you need it. And then, so it is really important that you take the TSI and take care of it before you graduate. But a lot of times I get pushback from students. Miss Phelan, I'm not going to college. I don't need to take another test. I'm so tired of tests. I will get students that will tell me that they want to take a gap year. So what that means is that they plan to take a year off. I don't encourage it. Unless you've got I do know some students do take a year off because they have to do a mission trip or a mission or something. That's understandable. But you've got to have everything ready to go so that the following year, when you're wanting to come back to school, you'll have everything in place. The other thing I tell students is that one thing you could do is just at least, bare minimum, take your math requirement. Take one class, get it out of the way, because it would be pretty hard to stay away from math for a year and then have to relearn everything when you get back. You may not be as successful as you are right after high school. And then I'll get students who tell me, they want to enlist in the military or they want to attend a trade school. As I mentioned earlier, I have students who change their mind all the time. One in the fall, they may have one plan, and then by the end of the year, it's a completely different plan. So I really encourage you to take care of all of these requirements so you're kind of covering all of your bases. And we're more than likely going to offer the TSI here for seniors who need it at Tomball High School as well. And so we'll talk about what's required to take the TSI. So just in general, one of the first things you're going to need to do. So if you plan to go to Lone Star or, you're another college here in Texas, you're going to have to apply to whatever school you're intending to attend. And then whether it's through Apply Texas or whatever college application platform, you're going to set up your account. And then you're going to do what's called a pre-assessment activity. It's just a series of videos that tells you more about the TSI and just better prepares you for the test. And so whether you're planning to go to Lone Star or another school, there's a similar process. And we'll go over all of that if you do plan to take the TSI with us. And so with this recording, you'll also get access to a PDF with these slides. And this section will have a link to a study app and where you can start studying for the test. So if you know for sure you didn't meet those benchmarks and you're not going to take the SAT or ACT, then you need to start studying for the TSI so that you'll be ready for when we offer it here on our campus. So thank you so much for watching this video. Again, my name is Miss Phelan. I'm at Tomball Memorial. So if my Tomball Memorial students have questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And I know Miss Nichols over at Tomball High School expects you Tomball Cougars to reach out to her if you have any questions. Thank you so much and good luck with your senior year.